This is IBM Museum. And ahead of a live stream that I'm going to do tomorrow morning, that's going to go over the IBM 7496 Executive Workstation, I'm going to have that stream that we're going to, in the comment section, we're going to get questions, we're going to get people's opinions, we're going to get ideas and go through and give some feedback as far as what we've learned about the system. And sure, people can participate. I'm wanting to hear questions. I'm wanting to hear what people think about the 7496. No, there's been mine is the only system I've heard of that is working so far. I got it from Computer Reset just a little bit over a month ago, and there's other places that are working on those, but I'm the only one that has a fully functioning unit. I'm aware of just some issues. I've tried to help out those other places, and I'll show all the documentation that's been compiled up on that 7496 Executive Workstation. Now, that live stream is at 10 a.m. my local time, which is Mountain Standard Time. That is GMT -7. That is calculates out to being noon Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you're outside the continental United States, with that GMT -7 being 10 a.m., you can calculate what that is for your local time zone. Another way is just to go to my channel, and it's listed there. You can set the reminder. You'll get notifications and even see a running clock countdown of how much time remains before I'm going live. Looking forward to seeing people there. Now, tonight, I'm going through, I did work on earlier, and takes a little bit of time, but I went through and I've got the Mall 30 technical reference. I went through and scanned. And the Executive Workstation is based on the Mall 30 planar. I just went through. I mean, this takes me a little bit of work to go through and just leave through this manual, put it on my copy machine to go through and scan it page by page. But it's got some nice little details here. I'm just kind of seeing how it's coming out on the camcorder. I know I have to work off to the side here. And so I've got that up. I'll provide the location for that in the video description. And I also have my, I refer to it as my maxed out 30. And certainly it is not to the level of fully being maxed out. In fact, I want to go through and I want to try and connect up like a zip drive to it and things like that, in addition to the stuff I have here already. And I mean, it could have a larger hard drive. I'm going through and I've really gone through. I've got all the adapter slots filled. I do have a IBM's VGA adapter even in the top slot that, I could go through and I could fall back to the planar video would be a good option. If I already have video, why go through and add to it or whatever else? I mean, that does well enough a lot of the time. And we'll get to see a little bit of that video output as I have it captured and have the machine running. I'm wanting to look at one particular area kind of for tonight's study. I mean, I could have like a network board and stuff like that in there, but it's got, since the original Mall 30 was based on the 8086 CPU from Intel, you can put a V30 8 megahertz CPU in there, and you get up to the level where you can have the Intel 186 and 188 instruction set that's recognized by the NEC V30 CPU. So that's a good thing. I've gone through and done to it. It's got a math coprocessor. It's got an 8087 math coprocessor, and going through loading that power supply down. In this case, I've got a transfer 8-bit SCSI adapter in one of the adapter slots, and that runs the 1 GB hard drive. I don't use the proprietary drives. There's 20 MB hard drives being sold. There's I have a few that work, but if I run them, all you're doing is eventually they're going to die. But I could have put a 2 GB hard drive on there, probably. The adapter supports everything else, but we're talking at a original 8086 based computer. What's the difference between a gigabyte of hard drive storage and 2 GB of hard drive storage? It's enough. It's enough for this instance. And that SCSI adapter also runs the external CD-ROM drive that I have set up here. And so I can even go through and put in CDs and read them and everything like that. Below that, I have the 4869-001 external diskette drive. It's a 5 1/4 diskette. Now it only does the 360 KB diskettes, does not do the high density, the 1.2 MB, but that's fine for this occasion. Gives that external, of course I have to go external to the case. And one of the complaints of the 7496 is that it's such a minimal system. People say, why would anybody do that? It's only got a 720 KB A drive and may have a small color display on it and everything else, but it doesn't have any hard drive to it, anything like that. Not very powerful system. But remember, that's the same base system that I have here. And on this one, I do even have a 1.44 MB A drive that is swapped in. We'll go through a later video. I'll show the original 720 KB drives and how that changed. And there's another little area of study for those to upgrade those. But the machine takes it. You power it down, you swap disk drives, power it back up, and the machine is happy. No configuration at all, doesn't prompt you for anything, just goes through and does it. And that's the wonderful nature of the MUL 30 and then also the MUL 25 for the attached equipment. They go through and auto configure for all that. So, of course, it doesn't. I ran out of 8-bit slots. I could probably do an expansion, slots and everything else to put things like a sound card and maybe some extra stuff on there. But for working with the case and a couple external units here, I've got a pretty good system that goes through and does things. We'll see that at the very end. I'll do that in the outro to kind of show one aspect of this machine as well. But let's go through. I don't want to get to, I've been having the long videos. I want to go through and not have so much of a long video here. I've already got the unit powered up. We can see green lights and everything, of course. I'm going to switch over to it. And I'm running the I/O port reader of the undocumented PC. I'll go through and briefly hide my image so I don't really get in the way of the things that I want to see on the screen. Just to kind of show. And that's this is the second edition of the undocumented PC, the software that came with that book. And I've been in touch with the author some months back. And that's Frank Van Gilue, and great guy. He didn't even think that people were reading the book and running the software no more. But in this case, what I'm doing is I'm looking, we've talked about, I've done some video shorts, and we are looking actually for IO port 66 hex. And in this case, I talked about IO port 65 hex before. That's the equipment that's attached to the unit. But in this case, we're looking at 66 hex. So we got for 65 hex, we've got that 9A. You go over from that column of that the row of 0060 until we get to the 5th column there, the one that has the purple 5 at the very top, or whether you call it violet or whatever else. And we've got 9A in that one, and that's the equipment stuff. Next to that is the 66 hex IO port register, and it's got A4 in there right now. We want to remember A4. We're really wanting to see that sequence of what's in there in that register. So let's go through. I'm gonna just escape all the way back out. We're gonna get back to DOS. We've done a normal exit, as it says on the screen there. I'm gonna turn off the system. I'm gonna swap a couple things. I have to be careful because I've got some sparks flying around with the dryness and everything else. I'm making sure I'm grounded. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually swapping the mouse and the keyboard connections on the back. And people say, hey, that's kind of crazy. Why would you do something like that? So I've done that. I'm going to go through and power up the unit. As it powers up, we're going to talk. So the Mul 30, it looks and just the same as the Mul 25 being based on the Model 30. And this would be true for the executive workstation as well, since that 7496 is based on the Mul 30 planar, that it goes through and it has the keyboard and the mouse ports actually, they don't have any iconized symbol there or anything else. They're not identified as keyboard and mouse. They're just numbered as 1 and 2. And just a little bit odd. You get thinking, that's kind of strange. They aren't marked as a keyboard or mouse. Because the unit has this really strange potential to go through and have, it doesn't matter. You can have the mouse on one port and the mouse and the keyboard on the other. I even want to go through it at one point here and actually have like the keyboard in port 2 and not have a mouse connected or something like that, just to see what still registers with the system. It probably depends on that keyboard being a primary thing of what port it's connected to. And of course, all that is hidden underneath in the executive workstation. It's the same back. I'll even have to look at the back of it tomorrow and see if those are marked any different, if they're marked as keyboard and mouse or just 1 and 2, like the Mul 30. It might be interesting to see that. But, this is honest. This is the first time I've even tried this. I've heard that this is possible, but I didn't go through and try. We've got the keyboard effectively on port 2 now and the mouse on port 1. I had the keyboard on port 1 before and the mouse on port 2. So we're going to go through and change directory to the UNPC program. And we're going to run UNPC. And isn't that wild? I just switched the cable connection, so the keyboard and the mouse, the back of the PC, and there's no warnings or anything else. It just handled it. Okay, we want to view the IO ports, and we're looking again for that port 66 hex. And so we go across the row, that 00660, and go down to that 6 column, and we can see AC in there before. And there was A4 in there before. So something different this time. Now for those, I mean, the 9A is the same in port 65 hex. The equipment attached did not change. But the only thing that changed is the mouse and keyboard. And that the system actually tracks to say, hey, the keyboard's on port 2 now, when before it was on port 1. And so that's a success. We just went through, we verified that the system goes through. It doesn't matter what port you have the keyboard on or the mouse on. I think primarily that you got to have a keyboard attached. And I don't use the mouse in this instance. I didn't load a mouse driver, although I could have before this, to go through and, uh, fully verify everything works or wherever else. But it's kind of neat. It's just the way I hear it from Major Tom is there's other later PS2s and the last models of PS2s that went through and were able to do this as well. But all the other PS2 lines, um, they have the keyboard and the mouse port. They have an iconized symbol next to them, and then they go through. There was even a convention. Hey, if the port is closest to the power supply of the unit, and for some of those configurations, that's kind of an odd arrangement where you define what's closer. You try and calculate some linear distance when the power supply is just some odd position on the system. But there's typically a convention for what was effectively the keyboard port, or where you could see that iconized symbol for a keyboard connection. And then the mouse would be, of course, the other port. So we verified that. We've got that AC in there now for that register. And I can probably link to where that information is. In fact, I'd even like to find out who is the source of that information. I just have a username on a forum, and it's just MK Archer, and it's on the Vogons forum. And I'll give a link to where that page is. And I've been on Vogons. I mean, I've got an account there and everything else. I've done it mainly to go through and watch for topics or see topics and things like that. Been a registered user for a long time, but it tells me I haven't participated in the discussion enough that I can't send private messages. So I can't send a private message to this other username to say, hey, can you go through and contact me? Or I'm interested in giving you credit for finding out this detail, because this other username refers to going through the Model 30 technical reference and finding this information, or going through and doing empirical testing like this to find out this information. And that's one of the areas that username has covered, is that the Model 30 has this behavior over the mouse and the keyboard. Port 1 and port 2. I'll give the link in the video description. Let's go through and use the keyboard and just do an escape all the way back out. We've normal exit. I think I can even run it from the UNPC because I got it in my path statement. Just a final step of showing what the system is able to do. And that looks better on that screen than I'm seeing on my flat panel display. And of course, that's asking a lot for taking that as the VGA graphics I'm able to do. But I'm seeing that in color the same way. The MCGA video would not be able to do this quite as well. We could even look through and look, I have that's a way to go through and verify that I have mouse control. I'm working with an older mouse, so there's a little bit of see here, you have your Windows setup. We can see how quick, or rather how slow, but it gives it as display, and then the keyboard and mouse there. But it's kind of interesting to see. There's our file manager. And you can see it takes a little bit of time to go through and do this stuff. But there it identifies it has the A and the B diskette drives. That A drive being a 1.44 megabyte diskette drive, B being the external 4869, that's 360 KB. The C drive, which is that 1 gigabyte hard drive, and the CD for the D drive. So kind of neat for all that. And I've got bunch of stuff on there and everything else on the system. We just have to work with the kind of the nature of Windows 3.0 as well, though. In fact, I'm trying to think and see if we can save, saying or whatever. I think Windows gives the same prompt, but just to kind of see how the speed of things is. I'm trying to think if I've got any information here on registered. I don't think this is not even a Windows version where they told you had a registration or what company and person it was registered to. But it tells you it's in real mode and 323K of free memory. So I don't know what I have in here for Windows. Yeah, just the stuff that was included in DOS typically. Antivirus. Do I need an antivirus on here? There's Solitaire and Reversi. But there's our Solitaire running. I could go through and click on the title bar and everything else to show that. But this is that same level as the 7496 Executive Workstation. This happens, it has a whole bunch of extra little parts and everything on it. CPU upgrade, NPU upgrade, drive, all sorts of drive upgrades and everything else. But handles it pretty well for an older system. I could go through and play Solitaire, but I've got my supper waiting as well. I need to go through and get this uploaded. It's been at least a short enough a video, just over 20 minutes long, probably shy of 25 minutes by the time I do all the outro and everything else that you could have been doing. I really hope that you join that live stream tomorrow of us going over the Executive Workstation fully working. And seemingly right now, the only one working, although those other systems are going to get a little bit of help and get going. I had some spare parts. I went through, I didn't have to repair planers and things like that. I just went through a technician step that if you can, or maybe that old FRU idea that, hey, I'm a tech that's been dispatched, and that's the thing. If I find a fault with the portion of the planer that I can't get going, I swap the planer. And that's what I did. So, maybe I cheated a little bit or whatever else, but I just used what was available to me to get that Executive Workstation going. And we can talk all about it, what we feel is the history now, the page of documentation that we have at the Arden tool, everything else. I'm going to list the Model 30, that 8086 version like I have here. I'm going to list that page. Even there's a little bit of work that occurred on that today. Major Tom went through and has really been working hard to go through and get diagrams and everything else. I've even got to get some pictures, kind of right side up, as it were, go through and work with getting the planar images a little bit better, like the diagrams are. The links are there. You can click on them. You can see the pictures that I've taken. But there's still going to be a little bit of work going on. There's still going to be a little bit of even updates with the information like we're learning here. Switch the keyboard and mouse port. So there's a lot more coming. I'll list that in the video description as well. But again, the live stream for the 7496 Executive Workstation is at 10 a.m. my local time, Mountain Standard Time, GMT -7. That's noon Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Get the reminder. Click on my, that link on my channel. And, if you're subscribed to my channel, you get notifications like that too. But so that's what I'm recommending. Subscribe to my channel, please. If you haven't done so already, and recommend it to your friends that are interested in this sort of content too. But this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Play a little bit of solitaire, get me some dinner. Thank you.